Hi everyone, this is Cece and welcome back to another 12 Days of Christmas. Today is day 10 and I'll be coloring on smooth Bristol cardstock. This is 9 by 12, but I cut it down to 8.5 by 11 so that I could feed it through my printer. And this is the gnome coloring page that I have up for grabs at my Etsy store. So be sure to check that out. You can click on the iCard that appears in the right hand corner or in the description of this video. So for today, I'm going to use a combination of water-based markers and colored pencils because I know a lot of us have water-based markers and we tend to forget about them because obviously they don't render the same finish as alcohol-based markers, but you'll see how I handle that in a bit. So what I wanted to do for the background, I wanted to create some kind of a bouquet effect. And I'm gonna also be doing a glow around the stars, the lantern, and that little thingy on top of the hat of the main gnome. And so I'm using different colored pencils to do that, shades of yellow and a little bit of white as well. So the one major inconvenience about using water-based markers is obviously the fact that it tends to get streaky. It's very difficult to have an even coloring. So I tackled the small areas without too many problems, and I still use a flicking motion, much like I would do when I do something with Copic markers. But the way I tackle larger areas is that I introduce patterns into those big sections. And so for the main gnome, I decided to do stripes. And of course, I always use a flicking motion because that is one way of avoiding too much streaking. And I also go over the color once, twice, sometimes 3 times, depending on how light the color is. The lighter the color is, the more times you can go over. However, if you use a dark color and you go over it too many times, it will get super dark and may lose its luminosity, if it's even possible to have that from a water-based marker. But here I opted for dark green and kind of like a light aqua. And when I don't do any patterns, I try to match the direction of whatever element I'm coloring. In this case, it's a dress, and I've assumed that the fabric goes vertically. And so I matched my strokes that way, and that way if it's streaky, then it looks as if I intentionally created texture on the dress. I'm now switching to colored pencils to add the highlights and some shadows. I have a combination of Prismacolors and Polychromos. The white and the black, I tend to use only Prismacolors. And I'll be also using a warm gray to create some nice subtle shadows before using the black. So it's sometimes gray underneath and then a little bit of black. And when I shade, I do it in layers. So of course, the first layer will be super light, and then I apply more pressure as I build my layers. And it's always going to be darkest where closest to the object. So, and in this case, my light source comes from the top. So underneath each object, it'll be darker. For the background, I decided to do a different kind of shadowing. I'm going to use pointillism. And if you're not familiar, pointillism is a collection of dots. And the denser the dots are, of course, the darker the color will be. And so I'll be using two kinds of gray, a warm gray and a cooler gray. And I'm going to be doing this just around the gnomes, just to give them a little bit more interest. So I start off with dotting, and then I'm going to go over the dots with this marker, this light turquoise marker. This is a Tombow marker. And then I'm going to layer some colored pencils over that, and that kind of will create my whole background. So the colored pencils will have a light blue, medium blue, and kind of like a dark turquoise. And I'm going to be using that throughout the whole background. So it's essentially the same thing. I didn't record the whole thing because it gets repetitive, so I'm just showing you here one little section, and then you'll get to see it all finished. The one thing that I also did for the background, because I do like to add some interest to an illustration, I find that backgrounds are oftentimes neglected. So for this one, I wanted to have kind of like a bouquet effect. And so you're going to see that I have created circles within the background, and that's done by not coloring inside those circles. So of course, when you do this, you kind of have to have a very light hand. And yes, it's all done with colored pencils, and it just consists of very small circles, working my way into layers and layers and layers, from light pencil to darker pencil. And yeah, it just requires a bit of patience, but I like doing that. I usually have either an audiobook in the background or some kind of a movie that I've already watched that I don't have to pay attention too much to. But it's totally doable. I have to say it probably took me about, I'd say maybe 2 to 3 hours to do the background. I know it's labor intensive, and I kind of always feel bad when I say this or when I show you these types of coloring, but some people do like that. Some people enjoy that. So, but I totally love the final look of this piece. I also went around each of the yellow circles with white color pencils, so that just to intensify the glow around these light sources. To add a bit of shimmer, I'm using a Wickham Stella brush in the green color, and that brush has some glitter in it. The glitter is kind of gold, which is nice. It warms up the illustration a little bit, because I'm mainly using cold colors apart from the glow around the light sources. It's mostly cold colors I'm using, so I thought the gold glitter would be nice. I'm also going to be adding some dots on the dots. So a little bit of tiny dots, tiny white dots with a paint pen on the shading that I did with the dots. Oh, I also used the Clear Star Jelly Roll on the hats. Not the hats per se, but the wire that stems from the top of the hats on the two gnomes. In my head, they're made of metal. And so I went over that with Stardust Jelly Roll. I did not record the process. I forgot about it. And here's a close-up of each sections. I do love the background, and by the way, I leave the pencil marks on purpose. I could take Gamsol and smooth everything out, but I think that my pencil marks adds interest. It definitely adds texture and movement to the background, and I really like that. And I love the shadows created with those tiny dots. It's fun, it's very whimsical. It fits the theme of this illustration. Winter gnomes, Christmas caroling. Who would have thunk it? So that concludes today's video. I hope you've enjoyed watching me color this illustration, and this illustration can be found, as I said before, at my Etsy store. You can buy it individually, or you can buy the whole bundle of the 12 days of Christmas, and I will make sure to put the link in the video description as well as in an iCard. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you later. Bye!